Hello, good morning or afternoon, evening, wherever you happen to be in the world. Hello, Mouse Hunt. Welcome to Feedback Friday. My name's Dave. What day is it today? It's August 20, 2021. Hello to everybody in the chat. Hope everyone is doing well today. Hello, Purple, Kathy, Snowy, watching from mobile today. Well, welcome, welcome. Hello, Michelle. Always a pleasure as always. Purple, just watch me mouse, singing along to the MouseHunt song, and what's it called? Impress You, I think. And Lonely Sailor in there. A few early birds in the chat today as well. Hello, hello, Tarako Diamond. Eric. Hello, hello. Anders. Caleb says, man, I hope Ron's isn't coming back yet. I blew all my gold already. No, that airship in the thumbnail is Hunter's airships in the floating islands, retrofitted with rocket booster technology, which was invented by Ronza, which also looks not the most aerodynamic. I'm not quite sure how it works, but she figured out a way to put rocket boosters onto a dirigible. I also hope whatever is providing the buoyancy in that balloon is not flammable, because that's awfully close to an open flame. So I guess she's made some good breakthroughs there, though. Hello, hello. Yono, hello, Dave. Sending love from the Philippines. Hey, right back at you from Canada. Purple, finally, your singing skills are recognized. Yeah, absolutely. Well, today, as you might expect, with the Sky Palace has finally arrived. I thought we could hang out, talk all things Sky Palace, get early first impressions, feedback, suggestions from hunters. But even I'm kind of flying by the seat of my pants. I don't even have any notes myself today. So I thought we'd hang out a little bit, get people's early impressions of the Sky Palace, any suggestions, even anything you thought maybe could be tweaked or anything a little bit different as well. Even then, maybe if we have time, looking ahead a little bit to what the team is working on, and kind of in context to the Sky Palace, working on workshopping some treasure maps. And so that's worked reasonably well in the past, of kind of following up a release with treasure maps as an opportunity to maybe fine-tune some things, adjust things based on player feedback, kind of let everyone go through it for a little bit, and then often we get great suggestions from players as well. It's also great inspiration of, well, what should map rewards be as well, looking for suggestions there. And sometimes it's nice to see how players are tackling things, see what sort of things they're in need of and what things they're not so much in need of, and that kind of helps guide some decisions there as well. KDM, hello to you as well. Was that Fast 9 inspired? I don't think so. I can't say with certainty. Oh, and hey Dave, how have your Sky Palace trips been? Myself, I have yet to go to the Sky Palace. I am going to save up. I think my current plan is saving up enough storm cells to do 8 in a row and get all the silhouettes. I want to do one of each power type back to back to back to back, and so forth. So that's my plan, I think. Snowy says, multiple pirates on the hunt for Ronza gold. Yeah, absolutely. They tend to pillage her, and that's why you may find the pirates drop a few Ronza-themed items. And that's maybe a few things that they've managed to lift from her cargo holds throughout the years. Most notably, and recently, Peggy. She, on occasion, drops a Toothlet. That is something Ronza also sells. You can exchange your Chrome Bits for. So occasionally when you capture Peggy, you'll find she drops a Fulmina's Toothlet. Raymond says, love it. Just the right amount of grind, passive hunting, and rewards. Great to hear. Scribdev, hello. Hey, always nice to see you, my friend. Tarako says, loving the Sky Palace. Fantastic to hear. Eileen, drooling over maps. Well, we are workshopping a few different varieties even, so we'll see. For sure there'll be at least one, but we're even kind of workshopping a couple others, but kind of depending on feedback and how players tackle the Sky Palace, will kind of determine how many maps we go with. KDM says the increase in the attraction rate for the Fortunatus Fool between 3 crash and 4 feels insignificant, really. Off the top of my head, I don't know the exact, but we were aiming to have that not be exactly a trivial buff or bonus when you unlock 4. We were struggling. The original version of the palace that we had put together, you needed 4 of a kind to find the unique characters. So the Fortunatus Fool, the Charmed Tinker, the Appraiser, and so forth. You needed 4, but that became a challenge. It's almost a little frustrating to try to feel like I gotta get 4. And so we pulled that back and we said, okay, you need 3 of a kind to get the unique character while you're in the Sky Palace. And if you get a 4th, you get a healthy little encounter rate bonus. So it feels, beneficial, but not absolutely mandatory just to unlock silhouettes. So, but yeah, that's a good piece of feedback as well. Kind of maybe look through that a little closer. John says the drop rate of storm cells from Sky Pirate seems very low. Is that correct? It varies based on the pirate. The tier 2 pirates, or the pirates that come out when you have 2 dens active on an island, they do drop them much more significantly, whereas the ones that come out when you only have 1 pirate den, that's not the best source of storm cells. Basically, as you upgrade your Oculus, it will help you collect storm cells more quickly and easily. And the first upgrade you get is just 1 pirate, so that's kind of the lowest tier of collecting storm cells. And then 2 pirates, it gets a little better. And then at 9, you unlock double loot cache, so you can get Richard, and Richard has some pretty good storm cell drops. Josh says, really cool way to extend an area, taking an already good concept, taking it further another layer. Well done, guys. I think you'll pass along to the whole team. Yeah, definitely kind of feedback from the original floating islands that we had was, it was meaty. It was definitely a big, vast area, has all the power types. I think I've phrased it this way before, it's almost a game within a game. It's of significant scope and size where it's pretty well a standalone game. So with that, we kind of put in quite a few goals to do that would take quite a while to do. But I think maybe the sentiment we got from players was it gets a little repetitive, even though it's that big. So hopefully the Palace adds a little bit more variation. So what you're doing changes a little bit more often, a little bit more of an ebb and flow, kind of mixes up your goals a little bit more. Matt says storm cells, hey. Brandon says, are you a player? Absolutely. Kathy says, did not enter the area yet. Need to mine gold and do some other things. Oh, fantastic. Hey, it'll be there for you when you're ready. It's definitely permanent addition. Dallas says, also saving up for 8 consecutive runs. Hey, Dallas, join the 8 runs gang here. I'm on board with that. I like that. I like that too. Anywhere where I can just hoard a bunch of stuff and then just kind of go ham and do a bunch of runs in a row. I don't know why. I always find that satisfying and fun. Matt says, greetings, Dave. Any nicer way to gain those storm cells? Well, hunters are still experimenting around a little bit there. There are a few different ways to go about it, and hopefully we try to make it where there's different ways based on playstyle as well as the resources that you may have. You may make different decisions based on what you have. So, hey, if you have pirate cheese, pirates are great. Definitely you get storm cells from pirates, but if you're out of pirate cheese, you also have to take into account, well, it takes time to collect the pirate cheese. And so maybe you might want to go for Richard with a pirate den to really then both be collecting storm cells from Richard while you're refilling your supply of Corsair's Curd. So that then you can shift over and hunt pirates. So, there's, I think, different strategies for different types of players, depending on how you like to play, what resources you have. Like, if you like to do maps, if you don't like to do maps, there's lots of kind of variables in the decision-making process. Hart says, you're saying there could be some random Peggy drops of party Chrome scrolls. Maybe nothing quite that significant. Just a more of a thematic tie-in than something significant, I suppose. Owen says his first palace run was a 4 times glass and ore run, and that got me wondering, is it possible to get 4 glass or ore on a low altitude island? Spent some 200 stones, didn't manage to see any. You should be able to, but you'll have to defeat a few wardens. I think, unless I'm sorely mistaken, you unlock 4 ore eventually, so even on a low altitude. Maybe there's only 3, but I mean with a loot cache, you'd be able to do it. Chrome says, are the jewels still a long-term goal? I know the Sky Palace is released. Yeah, absolutely. You still do need quite a few of them. But depending on how you go about it, and whether you like to do maps or not also is a variable, but I would say that the Palace has at least doubled the speed at which you can collect jewels, if not tripled, depending kind of how you go about it. So it's still a long-term goal, maybe not quite as long-term, and we hope it's a more varied experience as well. So your journey, your jewels are coming from multiple different sources. The ore and glass is a great pick in the Palace as well. If you don't have a level 9 Oculus yet, that's a great way to get there a little bit quicker. And then that's all the sooner you can start using that ore, glass, and high altitude loot to start getting jewels from the general store, or trapsmith rather. I feel like that's often an oversight or forgotten about, is you can get jewels directly from the shop in a slow and steady manner. Eugene says, totally in love with the Sky Palace. Just want to ask if there's any changes to Richard's attraction rate in regular islands. Seems to be attracting lesser Richards. Well, that's maybe just a symptom of now that you're kind of paying really close attention, maybe. Purple says only did one palace run on the 4 times jewel buffs. Great reward so far. Not sure what the jade thingies do, but great so far. Well, the ancient jade fragments, they will get you ancient charms, which then you can upgrade all the way up into ultimate ancients or even rainbows if you have enough of them. Final Heart says, why is the appraiser the one judging raw minerals and the geologist the one looking at shiny seals from the ground? Yeah, fair enough. Maybe those 2 characters could have been reversed, but I think it works either way. Jonathan, Dave, any chance you could tell us if Richard has a higher attraction rate with extra rich cloud cheesecake in low altitude versus a cloud cheesecake? How much is different? Well, it's kind of 2-phase there. Keep in mind that the extra rich cheesecake will not attract daydreamers or kite flyers, so that alone is gonna make all the other mice as well more abundant. As well as it says it does attract more lucrative breeds more often. So interpret that as you will, but it might be a safe assumption to say yes, it will also you'll get more Richards when you use extra rich cheese, or you might say you get extra Richards with extra rich cheese. It's right in the name. Swift says, raw ancient jade feels not very useful considering how many ancient charms you normally get from mapping. Yeah, well, that speaks to the point of, hey, different choices for different play styles. Someone who doesn't do a lot of maps, you may struggle to get ancient charms. Now there's a viable option to stock up on those without doing maps. Similarly, just thinking long term, right? Like, depending on kind of where things settle long into the future and what else comes after this, should there ever reach a point where the demand for jewels begins to shrink, that may tempt more people to start picking the charm as a more viable option, which means fewer people pick loot, cash, and jewel, which kind of balances some of the supply and demand for that item. So there kind of has to be different decisions that have different results to kind of let things ebb and flow and balance itself. I am scrolled up, I think. Love the addition, says Diamond. Final Heart, not everyone maps. Purple, yes, less monotonous now. Thank you. Great to kind of hear we hit one of those design objectives. Lonely Sailor, is it too early to ask about Halloween? That is something the team is working on. We have quite a few things on the go, so maybe if we can shift gears in a little bit, we'll give a little sneak peek, or at least a little bit of info of what we're working on. Safeful says, one pirate has some tier 1 pirates. What about maybe Loot 1 also has a tier 1 richest mice? Well, I mean, the first loot cache already gives you double loot drops, so I don't think we're planning on adding any more mice. It's definitely a lot of mice in the area already. Scrib is hoping to jump on a pirate palace run yourself. Those are awfully fun to do, and it's even hard to decide whether you want to get the Corsair Curd if you do a pirate run, or if you want to get pirate seals. And I mean, that may just come down to whether you're looking to get more storm cells or whether you're looking to do maps. Thomas asks Giorgio if Dave is a player, right? Corey says, I think the fact that the floating islands, and now even the Sky Palace, are all under one area makes it much easier to maintain hunts compared to places you had to travel a lot, like Queso Canyon. Yeah, fair enough. And even kind of chilling out in the idea bank, we've been trying to brainstorm ways to smooth out friction there. I mean, it's been a long, antiquated kind of rule that friends in the area are what bring you on hunts. But it's also kind of tricky to get that just right. We haven't had just the right idea, and so I think that's why we haven't kind of gained any momentum on changing that, but it would be nice if it was a little easier for friends to bring you on hunts. Diamond says, when are the new maps coming? There's a little bit of a question mark around that, to be honest. So because we're kind of workshopping things, it's tough to say for sure. And so I even hesitate to say even a rough timeline, but I certainly think it would be nice if they could come out next month, because that's a little something to do before Halloween arrives. That said, no guarantees on that. There's kind of a big question mark. It may not be until next year, so we're not entirely sure. Walton says, sorry if this has been asked before, but is Season 8 going to end soon? You haven't acquired the LE bases yet. You might want to get on that. In the past, November is when we changed the seasons, and we've done an okay job at being somewhat consistent with November being the time we changed the seasons. I think the team is particularly excited to work on Relic Hunter Season 9. because we often use it as an opportunity to add a few new features, quality of life improvements, revisit maps. They're very popular, big feature in the game. A lot of players enjoy them. So it's kind of nice to set aside some time once a year to just kind of go over all the player feedback of maps and make some improvements where we can. And last year we added the community maps interface in a very sort of MVP kind of rough state, and we wanted to see how many people are going to use this, how much feedback do we get before we invest a lot more time in improving upon it. And yeah, we've had lots of great feedback, lots of suggestions, and so I think the team's excited to add some like filters, searchings, things like that, but nothing kind of set in stone, but we're hoping we'll have time to do that for November. Anders says completed 3 Sky Palace runs, saving up for another now. Very nice. I think, how many storm cells am I at? And I can sound my horn. All right. I'm at 133. Malcolm asks any consideration about Mooncake Mid-Autumn Festival, something like that. I don't know if I'm too familiar with that. KDM says, which bug caused the lock Sky Palace bug titles to get reshuffled? Ooh, I laid in bed and I stared at the ceiling, having trouble sleeping after that. I did something rather boneheaded in our infrastructure that caused a slight blip. And so yeah, definitely a few hunters noticed that despite the fact they locked some wheels, it momentarily had a little blip on the radar. But that won't happen again going forward. So that's my own blunder. I definitely kind of blushed in embarrassment because it was quite the boneheaded mistake that I made. It's the first time I've done it. Well, actually, I think I did it once before, maybe about 12 years ago. So I guess I have an okay track record and thinking about, how do we prevent that from happening again? But it was just kind of a momentary blip that would have happened if you're in a certain state at a certain time when, I kind of pushed the wrong button in the infrastructure. Kaelak says, so Minotaur in the room, will really, really shiny precious gold ever have another purpose? As like has been mentioned repeatedly in the past. We haven't really made promises or anything there. It's more underlying player sentiment, finding new uses for some existing items, especially some of the interesting items like shiny precious gold, even to an extent the essence of destruction, maybe solidified amber queso. Quite a few things come to mind. Fool's gold. Definitely a popular suggestion, frequent suggestion from players. So something we're always looking for nice ideas, but until we find just the right one, I don't think we would do it for the sake of doing it. Kind of waiting for the right idea to come by. Traco says, yes, the Sky Palace titles need to stay locked. Absolutely, they do stay locked. And so that was just, I think it was Friday afternoon, kind of the little perfect storm happened where kind of the wrong button got pushed, and then we did a code push late on Friday to fix a display error. So something completely unrelated, and that caused a few locks to change, but it will not happen again, so they stay locked. ScriptDev wish there was a modifier in the Sky Palace, kind of like the Lucky Rift in Bristlewood's Rift, that has a massive jackpot, but hardly any shows up. Yeah, that would be kind of neat. Because there's 4 wheels, though, it'd be awfully hard to get all 4 of those coordinates locked in. In a way, hey, getting all 4 loot cache to line up, you do have some jackpot moments there, where the Empyrean Treasure Trove, the Fortune's Fool, can drop that. Final Heart, does the Empyrean Codex upgrade Ultimate Ancients into Rainbows, or Rainbows into Ultimate Luck Charm? No, so it'll stop at the Ultimate Ancients. And so often a lot of the codexes are kind of very small, little nice-to-have bonuses, but aren't exactly game-changing in a big way, because they really are. They are passive buffs that just sit in the background. They don't really require any thought or upkeep, and so they're just a lot of little things that add up to something bigger. So that's kind of the intention with those. Safel says, does the new ask the same question I just answered? No, it stops at the Ultimate Ancients. Kind of open, we were wondering if you could add another chapter to that codex maybe, but maybe an idea saved when and if we ever add more tiers of Rainbow Charms. Mark says, trivia question, is RRSPG Gold a wordplay on registered retirement savings plan? Absolutely. And the retired Minotaur is the one that drops them. So glad that joke didn't go over everyone's head. Wildfire, is extra rich cheesecake going to go on the marketplace since bundles are available in the premium shop now? Yeah, that's an interesting question. We kind of went back and forth. Ultimately, we settled on having it not on the marketplace because Cloud Cheesecake already is. And so indirectly, that is already obtainable or already tradable on the marketplace. And things got a little bit weird because in-game, a piece of extra rich is worth 20 curd, or 10 if you use a magic essence. And that made pricing things in the premium shop a little bit weird because from that perspective, having the cheese cost 20 times more probably wouldn't really make a lot of sense. So it was a little bit of an awkward area. I think hindsight, if we had a time machine to kind of do things over, curd would be the thing that was tradable and it is in the premium shop, and that would just kind of take the baseline currency. But kind of seeing the way things are, that's how we settled on was extra rich is not tradable on the market, just so that it doesn't kind of compete or just make regular cheesecake completely irrelevant. It kind of was weird to have them both tradable. Snowy says, really, really shiny pile of gold. Jonathan, will new maps require Empyrean seals to buy? Too soon to say. Purple, never thought I'd see the day when I'd run out of ancient charms, thousands upon thousands. Yeah, it's been great. I think we've had great, lots of positive feedback on that charm upgrading system. And just even kind of a bit of a eureka light bulb moment of it's just a great way to reduce complexity, have fewer charms around, and yet be able to remember, help keep them all straight. Over the years, we've refined things a little bit, but there's just too many charms. It's hard to keep them all straight. Remember, where does this one come from? What does it do? And so this nice tiered upgrade system, I think, is a way that we can kind of slowly keep refining charms, kind of distilling them down, making them all feel special, yet still have lots of variety at the same time without having trouble keeping them all straight. Eileen says, I'm in my third palace run now, 4 keys. Best of luck, Eileen. Hugh, I like your idea about stockpiling storm cells and doing a bunch of runs at the same time. Thanks, Dave. Yeah, I know. Definitely some people probably have something similar in mind for Lunar New Year. It's a great time to kind of hoard up some supplies for a lot of areas. John says, for the maps, maybe set the filled full maps automatically, not as public shared. That will empty the list quickly. Yeah, absolutely. Like I said earlier, we kind of launched the community maps feature as sort of its MVP state, kind of simplest version we could, just to see how many players use it, how much feedback, how much suggestions, how often does it come up as a discussion point. And it's a good way to help measure enthusiasm for something, is how often it gets discussed. So yeah, it's definitely on the table, adding kind of filters, search and sort. Sort? I just made up a new word. Search and sort is sorting. There we go. Increasing English efficiency. I think I might be over caffeinated as soon as I start to make up words. Jonathan, we've all done something similar, Dave. I think I'm too far behind in the chat to have context. Hashtag just Dave things. Uh-oh. Alex says, twice in 6 years for making boneheaded mistakes is pretty good. Oh, yes, my boneheaded mistake. Indeed, I struggled. I was on my couch and I was just kind of chilling out. It was in the evening. And then I checked messages and I saw an interesting one from Michelle. I'm like, that's a little concerning. And then I had this light bulb moment, and then when I realized that I was at fault for that. And then when I thought about the sheer circumstances that led to me making such a boneheaded mistake, I kind of, that picture of the guy just kind of with his hands behind his back staring into the distance in many different scenes. That was me contemplating, how did I get there? How did I possibly do that? So, but rest assured, it was just a one-time thing, and so those wheels will not change again. It was just kind of a little infrastructure blip. I stepped on a rake, smashed myself in the face, and caused a little collateral damage. Purple Dave sent you a few things to help towards your hoarding efforts. Oh, I'll have to check that later. Well, thank you for Purple. That's awfully nice of you. Jeremy, any plans to add Cloud Curd or Corsair Curd to the daily calibrator? Maybe one day down the road. It's something we do review with every release, but kind of rule of thumb is we sort of wait until an area is a little bit old news. So something that comes up in MouseHunt and in a lot of kind of large-scale RPG style games. I think Jacob coined the term for MouseHunt, massive passive RPG, which kind of is a good way of describing the genre of MouseHunt, the unique game it is. But often what happens is there's just so much to do when somebody starts the game. it might take like 6 years to finish everything, which is great, but it's also a little unreasonable at the same time. So one thing we aim to do, and it's often referred to as compression, is kind of take some of the earlier areas that are sort of old news and as best we can just kind of shorten them ever so slightly without making them kind of boring, irrelevant, or anything like that. But just speed things up just a little bit because it's kind of fun. Hey, if you've been playing for 10 years and you're in the floating islands and you have a friend start playing the game, it kind of stinks if it takes them a decade to catch up to be able to play with you. So as best we can, we just try to just shrink it down a little bit. And the King's Calibrator is a mechanism for that, where it's just passively giving you some cheese. But we tend to do kind of older areas that have sort of fallen out of relevance to kind of help make them a little bit shorter, as well as many other things. It's just kind of one thread to pull on, but there are definitely many threads. Owen says, can someone with Oculus 1 get the same Sky Palace icons as someone with Oculus 9? And if so, what are the probabilities? Yes, it is the same. So your Oculus level has no bearing on the likelihood of the different modifiers showing up as possible coordinates. That said, upgrading your Oculus allows you to better collect storm cells. And so kind of still it's advantageous. If somebody with a level 1 Oculus, the only way to get storm cells is by hunting paragons, which means it's going to take 5 paragon captures. And especially at level 1 Oculus, that's going to take you a while. Trevor, what was the blunder 12 years ago? It was very similar. I went to... I believe I went to update MouseHunt, and at the time we had another game called Mythmonger, and our infrastructure was much more simple than it is nowadays, and I inadvertently, I don't even think I had much to do with Mythmonger at the time, I inadvertently updated Mythmonger, and I did a code push and updated that game instead of MouseHunt, and that was a similar boneheaded blunder where I stood in a corner and just contemplated my existence for a short while. I think I very quickly actually ran into the boardroom with Giorgio. I'm sorry in advance, and I saw his face turn white for a minute there. And he's like, I screwed up Mythmonger. Please come help. Please come help. But there was minimal collateral damage, if I recall, so it all worked out. KDM, what are the chances of a Fortunate Fool dropping an Empyrean Trove? That often comes up as maybe an interesting little stream theme. Anytime something rhymes, it's got to be a good idea, right? A stream theme is maybe a little drop rates, kind of look through different rates of things happening, loot dropping. But might save that for a little later. Might come better once people can kind of explore things on their own for a little while. Chaotic Memoir asks, why not have the most recent codexes be charm conduit upgrades? Seems more thematic. Well, they don't all necessarily have something to do with charms, and we're even kind of going to phase out the charm conduit. Dare I say, the idea of a charm conduit level we removed, and we may even go so far as to remove the charm conduit entirely at some point in the future. So it's just an antiquated concept, didn't really work out. Originally, your conduit was going to be a requirement to using higher tier charms, and so you'd have to kind of complete certain adventures to be able to use like an ultimate luck charm. Hey, you had to go do the adventure to go and earn the reinforced charm conduit, but that kind of fell by the wayside. We didn't go in that direction, and the conduit's a little loose end that is kind of hanging around, probably a little confusing and distracting, especially for new players. Wesley, is the Sky Palace going to show in the travel map? No, we ultimately decided not to. It's on a whole other plane of existence, so just like we didn't visually represent the high altitude islands on the travel map, the Sky Palace is not being shown either. It was just kind of, Jacob played around with a few different perspectives and what have you, but he just couldn't find anything that, he could kind of felt good about, and it looked good. So no, it won't be on the travel map. Just kind of exists as header illustrations and kind of backgrounds, things like that. Sean, I am late to Feedback Friday. Well, thank you for joining us, Sean. Hope you're doing well. Alex, Lunar New Year candles confirmed. I mean, I think it's too soon to say with any certainty, but I would imagine so, but no guarantees. I don't know if we'll make any exceptions, but it certainly sounds more fun to be able to use your candles in the Sky Palace. That sounds like a lot of fun, so I'd imagine we'll try to make that work. Taraco, will storm cells up after you've bronzed all the new mice. I'm losing my ability to speak, I think. I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's been a long week. Sounds good. Just like me. I like storing up lots of things. I think that's why I like the Living Garden. It's like the ultimate resource management stockpiling. There's just tiers upon tiers upon tiers. Snowy, maybe the raw ancient jade could be added as one of the future traps ingredient. Perhaps, but I mean, at the same time, you have to kind of go out of your way to obtain it, so I don't think it'll necessarily pile up because you have to choose to go and seek it out. So I think it's pretty good, and you know, the ancient charms are all very useful. Rainbow charms are a pretty good utility charm, so I think it'll have a compelling use, at least for the foreseeable future. Jonathan says, haven't caught the tactical Shadow, Law, or Forgotten Paragon yet. So be a while before you get up to the Sky Palace. You gotta finish that adventure to get your rocket boosters going at full speed. Excuse me. Final Heart, thanks for the buffs to Richard's catch rate and cell drop rate. Love the little lore reason why, however, it doesn't seem like he may still be slower than pirates over a full cycle. Well, don't discount the amount of time it takes to collect Corsair's curds. So there's lots of different strategies, and for sure, if you have a lot of pirate cheese, you probably want to hunt pirates. If you're out of pirate cheese, you may want to try to find Richard while you're also getting pirate cheese. Might be a pretty good strategy as well. And actually, interesting little trivia. I kind of like that you pointed out we found a neat little lore reason to tie it in. Ever since the release of the Floating Islands, the original release, Richard was meant to be very effective against all power types, and somehow that oversight slipped through and nobody caught it for a year. So we kind of noticed that while we're putting together some promotional wall posts and stuff for the Sky Palace, and so there's a little bit of a yikes moment. No wonder perception didn't quite align with how he was originally intended, or his intended difficulty level. So Richard was always meant to be that way. And then, we added a small chance of him dropping 3 just to kind of help with perception. Often it's tough unless you're collecting data and have a spreadsheet going and crunching numbers. Some things are hard to get feedback on, kind of what the intended sort of feel for that is. And so that helps lean into, hey, he's a little high risk, high reward. It's kind of high stakes to go after Richard. You could do extremely well or you could do extremely unwell. And so that kind of helps lean into that theme a little bit by adding a little bit higher of a range. Make a more wide deviation set. Sean also asks, will the Codex upgrade to Rainbow Charms? No, the description says just Ancients, and it'll only do Ancients, so it will not turn Ultimates into Rainbows. Dallas, I miss Mythmonger and Leavenlight. You should turn them on for 1 week each year for nostalgia. Unfortunately, I don't think it would be that simple to turn them on. It would be quite a bit of work to get them up and running again. Trevor says, my son started late March, just needs some rank, prestige run, and chrome turbine to be ready for the Floating Islands. Excited to full on hunt together. Been playing 13 years and he's 12. Well. Fantastic. Final Heart, we've been on a roller coaster of sentiment about Richard. He seemed terrible to great to cautiously okay. Now back to being a minor bonus on the way. He's all over the place. He is meant to be very divisive, though. It kind of depends. Mileage will vary when it comes to Richard, because there's a lot of kind of variables at play. So he might be a less consistent, but potentially very lucrative character at the same time. John, Pirate Cheese and King's Calibrator. I would say probably no chance of Pirate Cheese ever being added. If anything, it would be Cloud Cheese, but not anytime soon. Jay says it didn't start the Sky Palace yet. Only got to 9 speed on Valorift after finally getting the Celestial Dissonance Trap and the Prestige Base. Tested my acronym knowledge. I may or may not be right. Still enjoying the Valorift grind, but looking forward to the Floating Islands and Palace grind. I've gotten the itch to go back to the Valorift as well. I don't know what it was. I think I saw somebody hoarding up a bunch of charms, and it says, that sounds like a lot of fun for the Valorift. So I've been getting that itch again. Maybe with the spooky aura one time with Halloween. Elise says, is there going to be more rewards that are obtainable from the Empyrean seals? Too soon to say. I mean, we are kind of workshopping maps. And that is a potential avenue. That said, I don't think it would be an extraordinary, not like 10,000 Empyrean seals or anything for a map, but it's not outside the realm of possibility to use the seals as a potential thing to purchase the scroll cases with, but open to kind of hearing what hunters have to say and what suggestions. Sashi asks, how is Halloween event shaping up? That might be a nice transition to kind of looking ahead. Like I said, we're workshopping some Sky Palace maps, and hopefully those come together quickly without too many problems, so we can get them out sooner than later, but no guarantees. And after that, the other thing the team is busy working on is Halloween, and we're hoping this year to kind of give it a fresh coat of paint. Actually, beyond that, a complete remodel, brand new version of Halloween that we're working on. Give it its own special, unique area on the map as well. There is a big blank spot on the map north of the toxic spill, and so we're looking to utilize that to become a new permanent home to the Halloween event with a brand new format. That said, there's a few question marks around things because it took a while for that idea to firm up. We kind of went through a lot of different proposals, prototypes, proofs of concept, and it took a while to kind of find something that was going to work. And it kind of felt like, yeah, this feels like MouseHunt. And so now we pretty well have almost just enough time to do it. But as all the best laid plans, usually when we're laying out how long something will take, we incorporate a little buffer for unforeseen challenges, production delays. Maybe somebody is sick for a little bit, needs some time off, vacation, things like that. And so there's a few question marks whether or not we'll be able to pull that off for this year. But so we've already gotten ghost ships up and running, and that's sort of our escape hatch plan. Ghost ships will be kind of good to go if needed. That said, we are trying our best to get a fresh version of Halloween ready for this year. But if not, then we will tuck it away, and it'll be, hey, we know exactly what we're doing in 2022 at least. A little too soon to go into too much detail. I think next time I do Feedback Friday will be better timing for that. Assuming if Jacob does Feedback Friday next week, I'll be in a much better position to share some work in progress on Halloween. I was going to grab a few sketches and proof of concepts from some of the HUD interfaces, but I felt it's just maybe a little too early. Too much stuff may change between now and then. And in a couple weeks, we'll just know so much more about kind of definite timelines and stuff. I'll be able to share more relevant information and get feedback. One great thing about doing kind of sneak peeks, a little behind the scenes, sharing things we're working on, is it's an opportunity to get feedback on things before they're actually released, which is just fantastic. When we can make more changes before something's released. It's a little harder to change things once they're out in the wild. So it's nice to share what we're working on and get feedback through that means as well. And oh boy, am I scrolled up in the chat. Gavel says, will the map be updated to feature the Sky Palace in the future? I was asked a little earlier, and no, just couldn't find a way to do that well. That looked good. So no plans to do that. Similarly, the high altitude islands, you can't see them on the map either. A very creative name of Stupid FB. Hey, how you doing today? Says, please increase the attraction rate of fools in the palace and richer to low altitude and high altitude. Yeah, I think it's pretty good. They are not rare at all while you're in there, so I don't know. You can definitely, if you have a little bit of autonomy over that, if you get 4 of a kind, if you do 4 loot caches and your coordinates on your launch console, that will maximize the encounter rate of the Fortunatus Fool, versus 3 is significantly lower. So you may want to go for 4 if you're really trying to go all out. Final Heart says, was it intentional that 4 Seals Islands tends to give you just short of the 3K seals needed for a trove? Feels bad hitting 2.9 with 74 catches, maybe future additional uses. You know what, we kind of were... We try to get that in an interesting spot where they both, obviously, the loot caches and seals, both kind of achieve similar outcomes. The goal is jewels. Troves have the benefit of you get extra stuff in the troves, which is nice as well. But one's a little less predictable. And so kind of different play styles for different types of players. Some players like sort of high stakes. Hey, the next one could be the big one. I could hit the jackpot on the next one. Other hunters tend to like, okay, more predictable. After I do this many hunts, I'm kind of know exactly where I'm going to stand. And it's kind of interesting ways to measure that and help make decisions on future areas of how we set up reward structures. So, we've tried both. The original jewels were very much slow and steady. It's going to be a while, but you kind of know where you stand. And that felt maybe a little bit monotonous. There's definitely a lot of at least vocal feedback like, hey, on pretty well a week after release, I can just project how long this is going to take me, and it seems daunting, versus there's other areas where maybe it's kind of a similar time horizon, but the next one could be the one that gives you a massive chunk of progress, and that seems to be awfully exciting for some players as well. So, hey, the Sky Palace was a unique opportunity to accommodate both those playstyles. If you like steady, predictable progression, seals are probably a pretty good choice for you. If you like kind of could win big, could lose big. The loot caches might be a little bit more your speed. Mudkip asks, hey Dave, will the spooky shuffle game still exist in Halloween? I believe so. No plans to remove that. Again, can't say with absolute certainty, but with very high certainty, I think it'll be back. Zapke says, hey, how is MouseHunt World doing? Will there be an update? I've only been logging in occasionally. It was fun when it released. Even kind of included in the original release of that, it was kind of launched as is. So definitely, I don't believe the team working on that has any plans to update the game. Eric asks, ooh, that sounds interesting. Will that also be the Winter Hunt area or just Halloween? We will, what was usually the vacant lot / festive comet will remain as, hey, that's their zone for the Great Winter Hunt, golems. And to be honest, it's even a little bit weird on a development perspective how we reused an area and we keep repurposing it. In some ways, it's nice because it keeps all the mouse stats in one spot, but even just looking back, I'm not quite sure how that became a habit that we just kept doing for a decade. So it's even easier for us to manage if we make separate areas for the events, and we're hoping it makes it feel a little more special as well. Like there's a little spot on the map, and maybe the trees can pull back and reveal the Halloween area, and then it kind of grows back over and is like, oh, it's closed. You got to come back next October or something. So excited to see how that turns out. LD says, might be too early for the question, but would there be any changes to Halloween Lunar New Year stat boost buff? You have your prestige push planned for Lunar New Year, and it would suck if the 50 luck was changed. Well, hey, as always, there's no guarantees that an event will come back or repeat just as it was, or even any items that you earned from the last year's iteration of the event, they may or may not be useful. We do our best to at least make them somewhat useful for one more year as best we can, but it's hard to guarantee, because if we really change things dramatically, there's might just not be any way to make it work. So kind of, hoard event supplies at your own kind of caution there, but we do our best. That said, the spooky aura seems popular. I think players might be a little upset if we did away with it. Definitely seems something they enjoy. Even we're looking at ways of maybe just letting you hold on to it as well. Maybe you can save it for later. That seems fun. It feels very MouseHunt. I know I like to play that way. I like to hoard up things and decide when I'm going to use them and try to activate everything all at once and do something really, really intense and really fun for a short period of time. So, but yeah, too soon to say for sure. Like I said, as kind of Halloween gets firmed up, especially we're looking, I think about a week and a half from now, we're going to have to make the decision of, hey, are we on track? Or do we have all of our ducks in a row to do a new version of Halloween? Is everything progressing well? Otherwise, we'll have to pivot and go with Ghost Ships for one more year and save that idea for next year. So I'll be better poised to speak to that, I think, next Feedback Friday, hopefully. Knock on wood, knock on laminate, whatever this desk is made of. I don't know, particle board. Scribdev says, any chance we could see Carl make a comeback? I don't know. He'd have to come back from the dead. He is a zombie at the moment, so we'll see. But that's a topic that comes up from time to time as well. And I know the team has a lot of enthusiasm behind that, especially the art team is adding more characters to the game. Not having so many, it's hard to keep them all straight, but just, Big Jack, she has a nice identity. Larry, the King, even though you haven't seen his face, I don't think you ever will. Shrouded in mystery, the King is a character. Even it'd be nice if all the shopkeepers, each shop in the game had a little shopkeeper character or something like that. Just kind of bring things to life a little bit more. Purple, Sanche, Blanche, Drab, reinventing the English language. Uh-oh. Hopefully not me. I do tend to make up words when I'm speaking too fast, which is 90% of the time. Kidium says, you must go through all 8 power types in the Sky Palace to obtain all 8 codexes, or can you repeat the same power types? Yeah, so, the codex is just a nice little passive buff, little extra icing on the cake, or maybe it's sprinkles on the donut. I don't quite know what comparison or metaphor or analogy to make there. So you can repeat the same one. Just basically, if you catch the Empress 8 times, you will have 8 pages. Michael says, really enjoying the Sky Palace, looking forward to the maps. Love the ability to speed up the jewel and loot drops. Fantastic to hear. Scribdow says, I'd like to see some sort of maze gameplay for the Halloween event. Maybe bring back some of the old charms for Halloween that have been made redundant. The shortcut charm, candy charm. That was an idea we were kicking around a little bit. Basically, Haunted Territories 2.0. Kind of reimagine it. If we were to do it today, how would we approach it? Ultimately, we kind of explored a different kind of fun sounding narrative. So, again, it's a little too soon to talk about Halloween too much. But yeah, I'm kind of excited to see where it goes and be able to share more later. Trevor says, no kidding, you got 6 jewels from the first 4, key 0 on the second one. Exactly. Mileage will vary when you focus in on loot caches. So, that was the design intention there, was the seals, like I said, very predictable, steady progress. You pretty well know how you're going to do when you go for the Empyrean seal bonus. But when you go for loot cache, you could get 10 Empyrean troves, or you could get 0 from that fool. You just don't know who's going to come out ahead there. So whether you like kind of high risk, high reward, or you like a little bit lower risk, more predictable reward, we're trying to accommodate both play styles that way. Ryan asks, Dave, can we get storm cells in the Sky Palace? No. So none of the mice there drop storm cells. Just to obtain storm cells, you have to be outside the palace. You can almost think of it like, hey, they don't store them in their treasure vaults. They're way too volatile of a fuel source that they wouldn't put all their hoards of treasure right next to a somewhat explosive rocket fuel. So those are stored very separately. There's none up there for the mice to be carrying, none up there for the pirates to be looting and intercepting the supply chain of. So no storm cells in the palace. While we're putting it together, it was something we did consider, but it just got a little bit weird. If you went to the palace and you got cells to help you get back to the palace, we just really had to dial up how many cells you need to get to the palace, and it created this weird moment of the first run was like just so hard to do because you need so many cells, but then once you get going, it's like you're good, you have momentum built. So ultimately, it just didn't feel fun to make the first palace run just 10,000 times harder than the second one. Was just a weird progression curve. And so it was just made the decision, hey, you can't get cells in the palace, and we played it that way. It was more fun. Mudkip says, wow, if Halloween aura can be saved later, that'd be a great change of day. Sounds awesome. Yeah, exactly. Sometimes we get a little nervous about just being able to kind of keep everything and activate everything all at once and what effects that may have. But, ultimately, at the end of the day, the objective of a game is to have fun. And that sounds like a lot of fun to me. So, basically, if it sounds fun, and, it usually goes into the maybe column at least. Yeah, Jonathan, saving aura event aura sounds amazing. Exactly. Some might be a good fit, some might not be a good fit, but the spooky aura, we're leaning towards, it wouldn't be the end of the world if you can keep those skulls and you crush them whenever you want and you get the aura. Seems like a good idea. Don't take away the Halloween aura. I need it for my prestige push this year, says Michael. I'm getting the itch to do one more big push. We'll see. Maybe when I finally wrap up my living garden, see how many ultimate charms I restocked on. I blew through quite a few on my last push. I don't even know how many I used, but it was quite a few. Eric says, to repeat the earlier question from Brian, is there any chance of an optional dark mode UI? At the moment, no. I agree, it would be awfully nice to have. It's just harder than it sounds for us, unfortunately. It may have to wait for a kind of a significant overhaul of the game, or otherwise someone's going to need a lot of time to go through and really kind of execute that well. Another idea that crossed the team's mind was maybe we try it as a sort of beta, or like as is. It's just very tricky. There's so many interfaces in the game. Odds are they all won't look well, or they all won't have a high enough contrast to be very readable. So it's a larger undertaking than it sounds like. A kind of a quick and dirty version could be done very quickly, but I think it won't be very polished. So that's something to cross our mind. It'd be interesting to know how hunters would feel about kind of this beta as is version, where you're opting into this, and it's like a kind of hacked together dark mode where cool things are dark. But, buyer beware, or maybe not buyer, but user beware that a few interfaces may not quite look right in that dark mode. So we're kind of going back and forth a little bit. Final Heart asks, was there a design target for how often you can expect hunters to be in the palace, or ratio of palace time to non-palace time? It's been an amazing update, but feel like we don't get to see it often. Again, it kind of varies on play style, whether you like doing maps or not, what resources you have. Definitely, if you have a good stash of pirate cheese, you might get a nice burst of storm cells coming your way, and then as that starts to deplete, you might slow down a little bit. Depends on kind of how many cyclone stones you're willing to burn through. So, a lot of variables, but I think we're aiming for somewhere around the 300 hunt region, kind of depending on what you're doing, how often go to the palace. That said, you can certainly get there quicker, and you can certainly get there slower. So consider that, an average or a median or one of the two. Final Heart says Oculus 8 does feel like a big upgrade to how fast we can farm storm cells, but as mentioned before, Oculus 9 now feels very underwhelming. Well, try it out in different ways. Richard is a source of storm cells. Kind of this eureka moment or epiphany that we had recently was, I don't think we can change it now, was Oculus 8 and 9 should probably be reversed. You should probably unlock your second loot cache before you unlock your second pirate den in terms of Oculus upgrades. And that would have flowed quite a bit better because the last tier of Oculus, you need quite a bit of ore and glass. And one thing a loot cache does for you is help you get more ore and glass. And so, I think that would have worked a little better. I think that would have felt like a better progression. And even just pirates feeling like the very sort of end of the area. You unlock the maps. You get this new tool to help you get jewels. You get to take on something that's extra challenging. Then Richard could have been on those maps as well, and it wouldn't have been quite as awkward. So, if we had a time machine and we could visit our past selves, I think we probably would have gone like, hey, reverse those. And I think that would have worked a lot better. So, but it's kind of tricky to change now, right? So hindsight, sometimes 2020. And we have no shortage of hindsight often as an area comes out. Trevor says shopkeepers with their own lore would be awesome. Yeah, absolutely. That's something in the idea bank. I think we're up to 300 cards in there, though. So I think that's enough for the next 12 years of development. So prioritization is often the most challenging part. Owen says, can we still get Empyrean Codex pages after the 8? Guessing not, since it's not a currency. Correct. So after you get 8, they will stop dropping. And if you own the Codex, they will not drop either. So you can get 8, and then you buy the Codex, and everything's neat and tidy. Thomas says, Spooky Aura activated during Lunar New Year for new party prestige base push. I don't know why I want to say party bot when I see PB instead of prestige base, but it's going to make me want a PB&J sandwich eventually. Ryan says, late to the chat. Seems like you've got a lot to catch up on. We should actually wrap things up pretty soon, Ryan. You might get to watch recorded at this point. We'll see. But welcome, Ryan. Thanks for joining us. Danny says you like the idea of skulls to use the aura whenever. Yeah, I think that'd be pretty popular amongst players. I can't think of many significant downsides sides to that either. So, Mudkip, what's your favorite trap design so far, Dave? And what ideas design would you like to see in the future? Oh, well, I think the art team and our creative bunch, even a few other people on the team, are quite the creative connoisseurs when it comes to that theming stuff. Maybe not always my forte, but yeah, I don't know what trap design I like the best. It's kind of hard to say. I do like the new Chrome School of Sharks. I feel like it just looks fantastic with the Prestige base. Prestige base. I don't know, the blues, the purples all kind of go well. So I kind of like that design put together. Caleb asks, just curious, any plans for new HUDs for Feroma and Tribal Isles? So the tentative plan is to add a HUD to every area in the game, but we have been working on that for years, and so it's, priorities are tough to kind of manage. We are kind of looking at the early parts of the game quite a bit right now under the microscope as well. So no immediate plans, but one day, definitely want to do it. Brian says, to clarify, the worst flashbang is when the app startup. I agree, the UI for various location will take time, but the app startup shouldn't be. Not sure if I follow you there. Maybe just being a white versus dark mode. Maybe we're talking about dark mode. That definitely is a bright white loading screen. That would be kind of a simple change. Maybe make that a more muted color, a more subtle blue, a light navy. I don't know if that is an oxymoron. Trocco says, sorry, but what is dark mode? Just a display thing or something completely different? Yeah, I'm sure you've come across it on many sites where you can switch whether kind of the predominant background color is a bright tone, such as white, or a dark tone, such as gray or black. And definitely, as kind of the years go on, it's easier on your eyes for whatever reason. Even in a code editor, I tend to use the dark theme. I don't stare at a black text on a white background. I stare at, it's kind of a brown on a black background, to be honest, the way I got it set up. Jonathan says, are there any new tweaks to older areas? Definitely something we're always looking at, just bandwidth thing, but recently been able to make some headway, so hoping we can kind of keep pushing on that front because that's awfully important as well. D-Long-R asks, could we have scoreboards for catches of each mouse? Oh boy, that is something I would love to see as well. So that is one of the many ideas in the idea bank, but unfortunately at the moment no immediate plans to implement it, but I would certainly love it. I would love to see just kind of where I stand for a few different mice, give us little side goals and stuff. It'd be awfully fun. Mark says that the DHU, DLU collectibles in the game, any thoughts about some other collectibles of the same theme? Maybe Quar or Feedback Friday collectibles, eh? The good old Quar. Yeah, that's an interesting suggestion. I think in some ways we're hoping we can overhaul collectibles a little bit. You know, there's a rule of thumb in games, the more of something there is, the less special each one becomes. And so when you have 10 collectibles and you add the 11th, it's very significant. When you have 100 collectibles and you add 101, it becomes less significant. So we're hoping to kind of arrange things in sets. So even though there's a lot of collectibles, there's few sets. And that, again, kind of increases. When we add a new set, it's very impactful, even though each individual collectible on its own is less impactful. I'm getting tongue-tied here, which usually means we're getting close to an hour. Look at it. Yeah, we're hitting the hour mark here. Should probably wrap things up. As we quite often do, somebody mentioned Quar collectibles. That's a good segue into the trivia question. Hopefully I hid the answer. Let's see. I forget if I did or not. Hey, I did. All right. So this week's trivia question, Larry will have a reward link if anybody gets this right, which I'm confident somebody will. A bit of a unique trivia question. Which floating island or Sky Palace vault has the longest name? Nid asking me to sing immediate plans. This is the plans for immediate plans for immediate. There you go, Nid. I sang it. That's often a little like rapping tempo we have back and forth here at the office. I guess I shouldn't say office. We all work from home now. And you know what I'm also realizing? I forget the answer. I did not write down the answer myself. Hold on, let me peek at the answer here. Fantastic. Just fantastic here. Come on. Let me look at this answer here. Did I test this reward link as well? I'm just a hot mess. Let's test this reward link. I did. Yes, I did. All right, beautiful. For the first time in Feedback Friday history, have I stumped the chat with a trivia question? People are frantically going to the wiki. I don't see any correct answers so far. I'm going to be stingy about what I accept as the correct answer for this. So when you are on an island, a low altitude, a high altitude, or an Empyrean Sky Palace vault, the HUD shows you the name of that island or that vault where you are currently raiding. Paragon, not the modifier, the name of the island. So for example, where am I right now? I'm on an arcane island. So I'm just on a regular, boring, low altitude arcane island. But if I was in high altitude, it wouldn't say arcane island. It gives it a unique name. And the vaults also have unique names. There's also a high probability that I have the wrong answer written down. That has certainly happened in the past. I think, have I stumped the chat? Has it happened? Has it happened? Somebody says Shadow Stronghold. Let me see how many characters. We're looking for number of characters here. Let me just make sure I'm not just sitting on the wrong answer entirely. Nope, that one's longer. All right, it's not the Shadow one. Someone's getting close. Final Heart, you're warm. You are definitely warm. You've been the closest. Final Heart, answer of Draconic Sanctuary or the Forgotten Fortress. You're the closest so far. And you're on the right track because it is a tie. And I really hope I don't have the wrong answer here. Pretty sure it's Draconic Sanctuary then. Now, Draconic Sanctuary and Forgotten Fortress have the same number of characters in the name. They're both 18 characters long. There's one more that is also 18 characters long. Unless I've made a horrible mistake, which does tend to happen. As I open up to double check my math here. Looking at them in a fixed width font. And yes, my cursor is on line 19 of all of these, all right? I'm not crazy. I'm not making stuff up. Forgotten Fortress and the Draconic Sanctuary. That's 2 out of 3. Can anyone find the third one that is also 18 characters long? The Physical Strong Box. Kaum gets it right first. It's a 3-way tie. The Draconic Sanctuary, the Forgotten Fortress, and the Physical Strong Box are all 18 characters long, which makes them the longest named island and or vault. I'll put the reward link in the chat. The Hit Grab Hideaway guesses over there. No one's found the Hit Grab Hideaway yet. The Hit Grab Hideaway, it's right next to Paul's house. Or it's maybe that's where Paul's house is. It's in the Hit Grab Hideaway Island. But yes, it was a 3-way tie. Draconic Sanctuary, Forgotten Fortress, and the Physical Strong Box are all 18 characters long, making them the 3 longest names of islands and or vaults. Longest quar ever. I came close. I think that's as close as I've ever come to stumping the chat. If there was a time limit on trivia, I think it would have done it. There we go. I had to get awfully creative. I had to be pretty kind of off-topic trivia. Something out of left field here. Trick question with 3 answers. Yep, that's what it takes to slow down mouse hunters. Normally, it was within mere seconds. Whatever question I come up with is answered in mere seconds. We got at least a minute there. Woohoo. Well, we should wrap things up. It just hit noon for me here. So I will say thank you for joining me, hunters. Thanks for all the early feedback, impressions, suggestions on Sky Palace. That's great food for thought as well as we kind of look at workshopping maps. Let us know kind of, hey, what things should we utilize as to start maps? What rewards should maps have? It's all kind of good food for thought as we workshop that stuff. Thanks for joining me again, everybody. Have a fantastic weekend. Like hanging out, hit the subscribe button below. That'll let you know next time Feedback Friday goes live, which is probably going to be Jacob next week. I think we usually alternate with turns unless some plans come up. And then after that, hopefully we'll be able to share a little bit more about Halloween, might be the tentative plan there. So thanks for joining me, everybody. Have a fantastic weekend, evening, afternoon. If you're watching this recorded, whatever you're about to go and do, I hope it is amazing and you have a great time. Happy hunting, everyone. I'll see you next time.
Such a beautiful you. You're the master of the mausoleum. Look at me, barely at level 3. I am begging for a piece of gold. All the mice, all the terrible mice that you naturally attract to you. I wait with the trap and the bait and the button. I'm waiting on a such a beautiful you. I am caught up in the crazy game. Look at me, barely at level 3. I just know I'll never be the same. All the mics, all the terror